Okay, we are here today doing life stories, and I have asked Sue Truscott to kind of share her story with us. Right from the very beginning, Sue has been one of our biggest supporters and encouragers. She has always just been such a wonderful presence for Jeff and I as we've moved into the pastoral role and all this, and we just always appreciate just your words of encouragement for us. And you're always so kind and full of joy, and we always appreciate that about you. So I've got Sue joining us, and I'm going to just ask you a few questions about your life so other people can get to know you as well, and hopefully that I myself can get to know you a lot better too as we talk today. So Sue, why don't you tell us, give us a quick snapshot of your life right now, what you're up to, what you got going on, your family life. Just give us a quick little glimpse into your life right now.
Awesome. Absolutely. Well, during this COVID time, so many people are talking about being anxious and lonely, and, they wish things would change and stuff. And I may look like an extrovert, but I'm actually an introvert. It's all in how you recharge your batteries. And I recharge by being alone. So life really hasn't changed for me. I'm loving it. I'm absolutely just loving, continuing my normal life. One of the things that I have purposed in my heart during COVID, I believe that what we need during this time is not to get back to normal. It's to create a new normal, to take the best of what used to be normal and to get rid of the worst and change that. So one of the things that I'm not good at and that I've purposed in my heart is to be more there for people, in that not just be thinking of them or be there at the moment, but take the time out to actually seek people, to seek that connection. I don't generally seek a connection. I don't generally, push myself. When the opportunity is there, I can do extrovert, I can do bubbly, and I love it. But then I retreat to myself.
Right.
And I'm trying to change that. I'm trying to actually contact people and not just wait for them to contact me. So yeah, that's been a good thing that I'm still working on.
That's so good. I can definitely relate to you with that whole introvert thing. I think that we've learned a lot over this past year. I think that's really, really good advice to be reaching out. I've definitely learned to do that this past year as well. So you're married to Pat. How long have you guys been married for?
We've been married for 43 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I was 19 years old when we got married. Yeah. And there's a story there. I can remember, I grew up in small town Saskatchewan, as did he. And when I graduated from high school, I moved into the city, just like everybody did. And I was immediately seeking a church to go to. Now, I was 17 years old, and my parents had always believed in God, but it was never a part of our lives or anything. So I can remember finding this Maranatha Christian Center on the corner of a street, cute little church. And I can remember my hand on the doorknob and praying, God, please don't let me be these be those people, because those people were the ones my parents had warned me against. Some people could get too involved in their religion and be holy rollers and yada, yada, yada. And of course it was those people, and I fit right in. And I can remember one of the things I did there, being 17 years old, I was looking around at all the cute guys and going, oh, he's cute, oh, he's cute, oh, look at him, he's really cute. Oh, but he's engaged. Well, long story short, I ended up with that one.
Wow. Yeah, I bet you there's a long story there that would be really interesting to hear.
Oh, yeah. Life with him has been a roller coaster of nothing else.
Yeah. Well, why don't you let us in on your faith journey? You just let us know that at a young age you're looking for a church. So why don't you let us know, sort of what your journey to Christ has been like, and just give us a life story there, Sue.
Yeah. Well, my relationship with my granddaughter Nori is super special. And I remember my relationship with my own grandma was so special. She was just so there for me. She, lived in the city and I lived in the country. And she wrote me letters all the time. That was back in the day, way before internet. And she just was so there for me. She prayed and read her Bible every morning. And again, I don't know that my grandma understood salvation the way we know it. It was a religious thing, but I think it was a faith thing too. And it had a tremendous impact on me during childhood. We all went to Sunday school and church, as you did. I mean, everybody did back in those days. And I can remember always having a relationship with Jesus. But at age 10, I formalized that. I knelt down beside my dresser. I had my Bible in my hand, the one my grandma had given me. And I just prayed and asked him into my life. So that formalized at age 10 what I'd always pretty much had. Fast forward to when I moved into the city and went to Maranatha and got married. And I had faith. I definitely had faith all those years, but it was a very, very naive faith. It was all the faith I'd ever had to have. I didn't need strength, and I didn't need stubbornness and determination and, hanging on to Jesus for all you're worth.
Right.
But in adult life, when Pat and I got married, I was 19 years old. I didn't even know who I was, let alone, how to combat stuff.
Right.
And 9 months into the marriage, he went to prison. I remember spending our first anniversary in Prince Albert Penitentiary. Wow. What an eye-opener for a girl who'd never had to do anything like this in her life. I'd had a good childhood and a good upbringing and a good family and a good everything. And I was not prepared for this. But I dug in with my Lennox stubbornness. And, thank God we come from a Scots background. And I just said, this wife ain't leaving. You're stuck with me forever. Right. And I just rolled up my sleeves and went to work. I've had to do that my entire married life. And thank God, not only for my Lennox stubbornness, but my extremely warped sense of humor, because it's gotten me through many a situation. Yeah. So, Jesus is faithful. Right. In everything.
Right. I bet that you had to lean on God a lot during that time. Hey, that's where you found, that you were, it sounded like you were relying on your own strength and all that up until that point. And now it, really when the rubber meets the road, now you got to, rely on the Lord and really,
Yes, definitely. I haven't had to have strength up until that period in my life, and didn't know I had strength, but I had inner resources that, definitely God and his word and his people, like Maranatha people, were just absolutely wonderful. They were my Aaron's and hers in those very early years.
Right. So the church has, as pretty much for most of your life, it's always been a part of your life with Christ, right? You've always needed to get connected with the church.
Yes, very definitely.
Right.
Yeah.
And so how long have you been at the Vineyard? I know you've been at the Vineyard for quite some time, maybe since the beginning, but I'm not sure. Why don't you let us in on that? I know you've been, at the Vineyard for a while, so.
Yep. There's a story there too.
Sure, let's hear it.
In the 1990s, we had switched to a much smaller church than what we were going to. And that church eventually switched pastors, and we just didn't really click. But it took us 4 years. I was a firm believer, and we were both firm believers in bloom where you're planted, and never really knew that, God can change things. As you learn and grow, your needs learn and grow. Right. And that's okay. So in the year 2000, Pat had stayed home for work, and we had gone to Saskatchewan by ourselves, me and the 5 kids. Yes, we raised 5 kids.
Wow. I didn't know you had 5 kids. I thought you had a couple.
No, we have 5 kids, 4 boys and a girl.
Wow.
Yep. and loved it. Just absolutely loved it. Those were some of the best years of my life.
Awesome.
But we went to Saskatchewan to visit the relatives. And Pat and I were keeping in touch by phone. Even that was back in the days before Messenger and all that. And he decided that, since we hadn't really been happy for a while in the church that we had been in, that he'd go church shopping. So he got to the Vineyard. And this amazing preacher was, telling all these amazing stories. And every week he was telling me all this stuff that Vern was talking about and stuff. And he was hooked. So when the kids and I came back, we never went back. We just all went to the Vineyard, and that was that. That was in the year 2000. And now we're some of the only old timers left.
Wow. That's crazy. Yeah. You know what? Since the beginning of the announcement of the transition that Vern and Sue were stepping down, you've always been so just supportive of us, and we've always appreciated that because you've been there, since the very start of it all, and that's so amazing.
Yeah. Well, Vern and Sue were such an awesome couple. Not only were they our pastors, but they were our friends. Our kids grew up together, and they were always at each other's houses and stuff. And I'd always had in the back of my mind, like, when the time comes, who in the heck are they going to get? Like, nobody can compare. And when they announced that you guys were transitioning, I thought, oh man, you're the only people I've ever met in that church that could do this. And, there were people at the time that said, oh, it's not going to be Vern and Susan, yada, yada, yada. And I'm going, well, of course it's not going to be. It's not supposed to. They're going to bring their own flavor to the church. And I've just appreciated you guys so much. You come into the church and COVID hits. And you guys were probably just at wit's end, like, how do we do this? And you've just risen to the challenge amazingly. I just love and appreciate you guys so much.
Well, thank you. And that right back at you. I know that dogs are a huge part of your life too. My next question is, what is bringing you joy these days? And I'm sure that dogs are a part of that because we've talked about dogs before.
Oh yeah.
So what are you doing these days to sort of, put a smile on your face?
Well, I mentioned Nori. Grandkids are huge. My dogs are huge, definitely. Outdoors, nature. I'm so solar powered. And that just brings joy to my life too. I'm a computer geek. I'm always doing things on the computer, and okay. I'm always multitasking. So I'm always working and playing and doing whatever. I'm really into my pictures. So both the dogs and the grandkids really lend themselves well to that.
Yeah.
I love my dogs. They're just an awesome pack, and they love me back, which I don't always get in my life.
Yeah. Well, how many grandkids do you have? I know that you have Nori. How many?
Yep. We've got Nori and two others here in town, and then we've got two in Australia, and I love going to visit them.
Wow.
Yeah, 5 total.
Wow, that's awesome.
And counting, I hope.
Yeah. So you mentioned that this pandemic hasn't been hard for you. Is there anything that has been challenging, or anything that's kind of that you can't wait to get back once things sort of start opening back up again and all of that?
Cruising. I love cruises. We went on our first cruise a few years ago. We've been on a couple of them now. We were actually on a cruise when the pandemic hit in the South Seas. And that's something I really want to get back to. I love the ocean. I love the wide open spaces. I just love the beauty. And I love meeting people from all these different lands and just finding connections. And it's just wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's one thing, because it's something that has really changed my life in the last dozen or so years, is it started out with a sermon that Vern preached about, he went to the Sermon on the Mount and he preached the extremes. How for me, it was, what is an extreme peacemaker? Because I've always been a peacemaker. And he said, extreme peacemakers doormat. And that just nailed me right between the eyes, because that's pretty much what I'd allowed myself to be my entire life long.
Mm.
You know, especially if you're something like a peacemaker, you've got to set boundaries. You've got to love yourself and place yourself in importance too. And that's not always a Christian message. And we're to love others as we love ourselves, and we're all taught to love others. But to put yourself in there too is something I've had difficulty with. So for the last dozen or so years, and yes, it did stem from a specific situation, I just went, you know what? Never again am I going to be held emotional hostage here. Mm. And I've been learning to set boundaries. I've been learning to not get drawn into stupid arguments. I've been learning grace, and grace is something that doesn't come easily to me. I laughed at Lorraine's thing that she did when she said she thinks something, she blurts it out. That is so me. I'm so honest. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that I like about being on a keyboard. I can be a keyboard counselor and actually think through what I need to say. Right. But sometimes I'm brutally honest, and not everyone appreciates that. The people who love me fiercely, but I can be pretty hard for some people to handle. So I'm still learning. Yeah, that's a whole life. You don't ever get to a certain age and be like, I've got it all figured out. I'm perfected. Right? Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like the Sermon on the Mount's been impactful for you. I know that I remember that sermon. It was very impactful for me as well. Yeah. Well, I've learned quite a bit about you today. I didn't know that you had 5 kids. I didn't know that you traveled. And so thank you so much for sharing with us today. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know that people are going to appreciate hearing from you and getting to know you a lot better. So thank you very, very much. All righty. Yeah. God bless.